So in my hand, I have two of the most desirable, talked about, popular, affordable, direct-to-consumer 3-woods you could find today. The Takomo Ignis 3-wood and the Haywood Golf 3-wood. And in today's video, I'm gonna compare everything about these clubs. The look, the sound, the feel, the specs, the numbers, and ultimately come to the conclusion, should you buy this one or should you buy that one? Okay, first things first, let's dive right into the tail of the tape. Let's compare the specs of these golf clubs, starting with the Haywood. This is a 15-degree 3-wood, degree and a half adjustability either way in the sleeve. It's priced at $239. You have 7 shaft options to choose on the website. I understand some of them are an upcharge, but what I have in here is like the stock option. This is a hazardous black 70 gram. Going into the Takomo, you have a 15-degree head as well, 2 degrees of adjustability in the shaft. It's a 2-piece sleeve. It's a little unlike anything I've ever seen, but it still adjusts the loft all the same. Priced at $259, and you have 2 shaft options. Project X, hazardous, RDX smoke red or black. Right there, adding a bit of opinion into it, it's obviously more customizable, can be more dialed to you what Haywood is offering. 7 options, you can fit your flex from it. Yes, you could make this a nearly $550 3-wood if you get a Ventus in it, but those are expensive shafts no matter where you go, whereas Takomo is very much just click, ship, and it shows up at your house based on those 2 options. A little bit easier, less complicated, but custom fitting goes a long way with golf clubs, and where Haywood, I think, differentiates a little bit when it comes to a tail of the tape is Haywood actually offers custom fitting. If you're in the Vancouver area, you can go right to their office and get fit, but custom fitters around North America offer Haywood golf clubs. So if you want to get fit into Haywood, you could do it that way. To my knowledge, there's no custom fitting option with Takomo. With Takomo, it's very much what you see on the website is what you're getting. So before we dive into hitting these things, just some context. This is the first Haywood club I've ever hit. I've never even looked at a Haywood club until this 3-wood. Takomo, I used the irons for a year. I've tested the wedges, I've tested the driving iron, and I've tested the 3-wood. So I have a little bit more experience with Takomo. I really like the irons. Can't say I cared too much for the other clubs, but this is the first time I will ever be hitting a Haywood golf club. But let's dive into look, sound, and feel of both of these 3-woods. I hit the Takomo one last fall. Looks good behind the ball. The all carbon, it looks nice. Little not my favorite head shape, but it looks good. Haywood, it looks better. I would say Haywood is the better looking one behind the ball. I like the kind of tailor-made looking separation of carbon and that little black face crown part. It's just a slightly better head shape, a little more appealing to my eye. Very similar, but the minor differences I would give the Haywood in terms of appearance. Looking at the sole, the Takomo just looks cooler. The Haywood's sleek, very minimal. The Takomo just looks a little more jazzy, a little cooler. I would give the Haywood a little more of an edge in look, but now let's see how they sound and feel, you know, shot for shot. Again, it's been 9 months since I last hit this, so it's not that fresh in my mind what it felt like or sounded like. I remember that though. I remember that high ball. I remember it going high. But it feels really kind of smooth through the turf. It feels just a little dead. I remember that from when I reviewed it last fall. It feels just a little off the face, a little tinny, a little thin, but just doesn't feel like hot. Like I hit that well, and the sound was not terribly appealing, and the feel was just flat. So now we'll go to the Haywood. First time hitting the Haywood 3-wood. Yeah, that felt a little hotter. I mean, it's high, it's a range ball, it's 15 degrees. Not the best shaft for me in terms of launch characteristics, but instantly that felt a little hotter and a little more solid. See, that was a little thin, but man, that still felt punchy. The sound is not too different. Pretty similar in sound, but the feel is a little more solid, a little more punchy with the Haywood. Wipey, but that felt solid. Terrible shot. Let's go off a tee. Not a very good swing, but it felt okay. I'm remembering that feel for a little bit off the heel. Yeah, that just, ugh. That did not feel good. I mean, I've used TaylorMade 3-woods for so long. I'm very comfortable and used to their feel. This feels a little more solid, punchy. That feels reminiscent of like the Kirkland driver. The feel and sound, gotta give it to Haywood. But we're gonna do a little ASMR of the sound and see if you can hear a difference. Okay, I don't know how easy it was for you to tell the sound difference. To me, the Haywood sounds a little bit better. It just sounds more solid, but that's also because to me it feels a little bit more solid, and sound and feel are so closely, mixed together when it comes to a golf club. But subjectively, opinion, I think the Haywood looks a little bit better. I think it sounds a little better, and it feels better. Now it's time for numbers. These clubs can't hide behind numbers. My opinion has nothing to say on the numbers. So we're gonna go into the studio, grab the numbers of these and compare them and see exactly what the numbers have to say about these 3-woods. Okay, numbers. I'm actually really starting to enjoy this side of it. I didn't care for numbers like when I played, but now that I test golf clubs, it's fun. It's really fun comparing golf clubs. Typically when I do it, I'll grab 5 shots, just 5 solidly struck shots, good golf swing, at a good club head speed, and it gives us a good sample to compare to golf clubs. In this instance, I went 10. I really wanted to dive deep into these things and see if there were similarities, see if there was differences. So it was 10 solid shots at a good club head speed, which is like between 110 and 114, I was finding. Speed is up a little bit compared to when I tested this in the fall. Differences of the clubs, like I said earlier, the shafts. Haywood has the Hazardous Black 70 gram. Takomo has the Hazardous RDX Smoke Black 60 gram, and I started with the Takomo. Instantly, I was reminded of what I had to say about it last fall when I tested it. It's just kind of dead. Didn't have a lot of pop. Didn't hang with my 3-wood. Like you see 250 in the air, 157 ball speed. I anticipate a 3-wood going 260 to 265 in the air and being in that kind of 160 to 162 ball speed. These numbers are flat. And yeah, you see the spin is high. The launch is a wee bit high. So that's a little bit of shaft, but low ball speed and too much spin, that's club head. That's not just shaft. Shaft's gonna really kind of control direction and spin, whereas like power and ball speed, it's kind of the club head, and it's just not very hot. And then from time to time, it happened twice in this test, like a solid one that just went nowhere. Just kind of high into the right and nowhere. 241, 244, but they were good swings. And it was just like solid swings that went nowhere. And I think that just speaks to the tech, the R&D, the engineering in the club head. I think it just leaves a little bit to be desired. So now, I wasn't terribly optimistic going into the Haywood. I'd only hit it on the range like you saw. So coming in here to test it, it was like, okay, let's see the difference. And there is a difference. There's 5 more yards in the air. There's 1.5 miles more ball speed, slightly less spin, better launch. Like the Haywood performed better. These numbers are solid, a little bit low of what I would want, what I would gain. And we compare these numbers like head to head to head, you see it here. You see more carry, more ball speed, club head speed with the Takomo, there's 1 mile. Spin was a little bit less in the Haywood. The launch was better in the Haywood, and the height. Look at the difference in peak height. That Takomo thing, just, you don't want a super high 3-wood that's spinning a lot because that can fall out of the sky, or it's just not, it's not a strong ball flight. And we look at the dispersion of the two. The Haywood is just a tighter dispersion in terms of distance. It was a little easier to hit left, but I think that's just a softer shaft than what I'm used to. It was kicking a little early, so everything's left of the center line, but the dispersion is just tighter. The Takomo, sure, it's a little more to the center line, but look at that circle. The dispersion is massive. And you see it in this shot pattern, like the Takomo just has this high and right feel, whereas the Haywood was just a little flatter flight, a little stronger flight. Yes, it could go left for me, so just just an interesting comparison of the two ball flights. But going back to that dispersion, when we look at these 10 Takomo shots, there's 21 yards of difference from the shortest one to the longest one. 21 yards. And these were all like solidly struck shots. You don't want that with a 3-wood. You just don't want that. And then we look at the Haywood, it's 10 yards of difference across these 10 shots, solidly struck shots. So yeah, the spin essentially is what's gonna kind of create slightly different peak height, slightly different distance. This where you hit it to the center changes the ball speed. But 10 yards of carry difference versus 21 yards of carry difference, that is pronounced. So to close it out, I mean, it's apparent. The numbers don't lie. The Haywood 3-wood is just a better performing golf club. And I asked Instagram which one they thought would be faster, and 87% of you thought the Takomo 3-wood would be faster, longer. 87% of you were wrong. I'm so sorry, but I think that speaks to the marketing. I think that speaks to Takomo's in your face. All over golf internet, and a lot of people use their golf clubs. Their irons are really, really good, but I think we've seen now twice for me in the testing I've done, it's just a flat, dead 3-wood, and you only have 2 shaft options to dial it in, whereas this is a faster, more consistent, lower spinning 3-wood with more options to dial in and fit better to you. I could dial this in. I could really tweak this and get a better shaft in it to probably bring my spin down a little bit, bring my launch down a little bit, which would increase my carry. Maybe the ball speed goes up because the club's being delivered a little bit more consistently right behind the back of the ball. But if we're looking at just the stock options, for $20 less, you're getting so much more performance out of the Haywood 3-wood than you are out of the Takomo 3-wood. So to my question at the beginning of the video, you buy this, you don't buy that one. I think you can get a lot out of this 3-wood, and you could make it rival the 3-woods from those OEMs, but you're paying a third less, half less. Like, that's really, really impressive. When I tested this last fall, it was like the first direct-to-consumer stuff I'd ever tested. I was really, really blown away. I was really impressed with the notion that like you can get so much performance out of something that's like half the price. But now here we are 10 months later, and I've tested so much more, and I'm seeing the customization that the Takomo competitors offer. And I'm like, wow, the direct-to-consumer market is impressive. And there are some players in that game that are doing a really good job because they're bridging the gap with the fitting side and the affordability versus just like affordability, click, this is what you get. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. And yeah, Haywood, well done. Well done. You impressed me. You certainly impressed me in this one.